We've got an article here, 6 Things Architects Should Know About AI, written by Phil Bernstein. This is a few weeks out, July 21st. Phil Bernstein also writes books, so he's worth checking out and just taking a look at some of the books he's written, see if they're interesting to you. So the first thing of those 6 is AI systems are powerful, but only in certain specific contexts. If you need a fruit-based piece of furniture for your next project, you're in fine shape. So very specific, limited. A lot of these tools are generated by statistical correlations rather than innate understanding of their content. So AI or machine learning is driven by just statistics and math. And then the use of a computer. So they're limited and don't fully understand the context involved in a question that you would give it. The second one, your clients, especially the large corporate institutional organizations, likely to be using AI systems. I've seen clients that I've worked with, they will use AI. When it comes to the building side of things, we don't use that, but the very large clients are using AI. The AEC firms that I've seen are like firms like Bechtel that can, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but they're consuming enough information to create some pretty cool things, but something I wouldn't see in the typical firm. So there's a lot of promising but yet unfulfilled experimentation in AI in the broad building industry. So expect some of the products and companies to reach useful maturity and many to fall by the wayside. I would see a lot of that. It's obviously AI, machine learning. It's a marketing thing right now. Everything has AI in it. Machine learning, deep learning systems need tons of data to train, and the stuff we create in the building industry is neither large enough nor sufficiently curated to be consumed usefully by today's systems. I found this interesting, and that's something that I learned after diving into machine learning a couple years back, was that we don't have a lot of data, not at all. We're nothing compared to Netflix, Facebook, Google. We may have gigabytes worth of data, or in some cases a terabyte or so, but those companies have petabytes and just tons of data. And for us to try to tackle the uniqueness of a building, the location's different, the requirements different, there's so many variables involved, to try to build a machine learning model to address those conditions, I think would be incredibly hard without the data, and we do not have the data. And so I would imagine over time, I've read articles about more algorithms that don't need as much data, but I don't know. I don't think any of those are very practical right now. But it's something to consider before going down that route. Like if you have a very narrowed use, then it's probably better to try to see if ML could fit within that. Or I think what's really useful is to don't even go down the ML route if you're trying to use machine learning. Start in the BI, the data engineering, getting the architecture set up correctly, and then the BI side of it, creating dashboards and so on, really starting to understand the data you have and how it's being used, and then progressing from there. I think Gartner has some stuff on like the levels of data, so that may be something worth Googling. AI systems don't really know anything about their output. Is that chair comfortable or even nice? So it created the avocado chair, but does it know if it's comfortable? Does it know if it's nice or if it fits what the client's asking for? implausible for an AI to replace even the basic judgments needed to create an architectural design. So there's this YouTube video worth checking out by Computer File. Definitely check that out and see if or listen to the conversation. He talks about AI, the truth about it, what machine learning is, and then the limits of it, and how we don't really have to worry. And the more that I've learned, it's really difficult to create something because you're going to need the data. What's the problem you're trying to solve? There's so many variables involved in actually creating a practical solution that uses machine learning. And the last bit here is what AI systems are good in valuing prescribed problems with defined data sets and systematically generating alternatives. When I read that, I kind of just thought of some of the generative design stuff with Dynamo or Grasshopper, and then plugging ML into it. Anyways, Phil Bernstein, he wrote this book. I've never read this book. It sounds interesting. Neil Leach wrote a book similar to that, or kind of had the same title. So those types of authors and those subjects are interesting to you, check them out on Amazon or Google them or something. But anyways, that's the article. The next thing is, and I mentioned this, I would definitely recommend watching this. This was very interesting, and you do not need like a AI degree or data science degree to watch it. Very interesting, and I learned a lot. David, the host, is very... he asks very good questions, so check that out. The next thing is, and I won't talk about this video, the entirety of the video. I would recommend watching it yourself, but I figured I watched this, and this was in line with like the Mid-Journey stuff. I talked about last week how I kind of messed around with Mid-Journey. It only gives you 25, like you can only ask it 25 times. And I would love to do more of that, so I could figure out like how to, like, what's the best way to ask questions when trying to get a certain result, because I didn't have a lot of good outputs. But this is another one, Google's Pari. I like this image here, and that's why I paused it here, because it shows the model type, and I guess Pari uses a different model type. Instead of like, and I guess DALL-E uses like diffusion, which is when you have a bunch of pixels and then over time it refines those pixels until you have an image. And autoregressive is like, it's looking at like little pieces or puzzle pieces of images and trying to come up with things. So anyways, this was really cool. Watched this recently, so worth checking out. I think those image generators or whatnot could have a impact in the schematic stage, the conceptual stage of design. Could be interesting. I can't say that I would ever use them, but it's worth checking out because they're definitely becoming more useful, or not more useful, but their outputs are actually could be more useful now that they take the prompts in and really create an image that's pretty unique and cool. So the last AI related, machine learning related article for this week that I found was this one. In construction, AI can be your superpower. It starts off kind of comparing the industry people to superheroes. It says take place in unique locations with specific requirements and goals. So like in that first article, it's talking about AI and just like we just don't have the data, and I think this is a big thing to consider when you're trying to solve a problem in the construction industry or just the AEC industry is that we've got so many variables involved, and so if you're trying to solve some general thing, you're probably not going to achieve that, not in the short term. There's just from project to project, there's just so many variables. Beginning to retire, so folks are retiring. There's the climate crisis. There's the project complexity, lower profits, productivity, and then it brings a lot of pressure on the industry. This article is pretty interesting because it goes through and kind of talks about taking that the knowledge from folks that have been doing it for 40 years and them retiring, and then but being able to retrieve that knowledge in some machine learning application so that you can always use it and build upon it. So technology, AI is one of the weapons the construction industry can draw on to help solve these problems. AI technology, if built the right way, can modify the valuable and hard-earned knowledge of construction superheroes for generations to come. Built the right way, that's hard. I think the example that they have here is something specific enough that I think you could build it, and if you did it the right way and really understood the problem, that you could build solutions like this. I think a lot of folks, when they're approaching AI, it's more general, like, oh, we're going to solve almost everything, but I think it needs to be very honed in, and there's so many things that you have to invest in to actually get it to a practical state. Virtual AI inspector. So I thought that was really interesting. In the hands of all welders. What if welders take a photo of a welding they just did, and a virtual inspector tells them if it's bad, if it's a good or bad weld. When the AI system is in doubt and provides a solution with less confidence, Gary can correct it with his immense knowledge and put that data back into the AI system. So I would imagine something like that would be like reinforcement learning, and if it didn't hit like over a certain threshold of confidence, that then somebody had to review it to say if it was good or bad, just continuing to build upon the database. I think that's a wonderful approach, and I think that could lead to a very practical application of machine learning. It is if Gary is teaching the virtual AI inspector. So I think this makes sense. I don't know the welding side of the industry, but this does make sense to me. And having something where, maybe it's not just Gary, but you have a whole crew of these senior people that really understand the industry, or in this case, welds, continuing to improve that machine learning database by reviewing some of those images that are sent in that don't have a high confidence rate from the ML model. So that makes sense to me. That would be really cool to see that in action, something like that. Would love to know if you guys have seen anything like that. But anyways, that's the AI related articles and videos I saw last week. So check them out. Again, that stuff will be in Notion, but yeah. So on to the next topic. So Inkscape created this blog of the 15 of the best architecture, interior design, engineering, and then construction is the last one. They don't have listed here, but podcast. So I have not heard of almost all of these, and I'm not sure when this article was written. I'd like to get like stuff that's happened within the last few weeks. I saw this posted on LinkedIn, so I figured I would check it out. I think knowing about these podcasts are helpful, and then plus if you guys are interested in any of these, then I still think it's worth mentioning on the channel, because it helps you helps you find these things. So if we just scroll through all this stuff, you'll see the list starting with the architecture podcast. I've never heard of any of these except from, I think I've watched Business of Architecture. It is not my kind of podcast, and I'm not, I don't run an architecture business, nor do I, and I know that's not all they talk about on there, but I also, I work primarily in MEP now, but still, if I remember correctly, this one was pretty cool. Just wasn't something I listened to very often. And then the rest of these I've never heard of, but still I think they're worth checking out if those are interesting to you. And then there's the interior design podcasts. I'm not an interior designer. The engineering ones, I've never heard of these. They sound interesting. This is probably the only one that I have actually watched a good number of episodes. I've never met Devin, but I've seen, I think he was at Built this year, so that was kind of cool. I saw they had a booth over there, but I didn't get to talk with anybody. And that was it. They mentioned this one too. I was surprised that I didn't see BIM thoughts. I would have imagined that would have been kind of categorized under something, engineering, architecture, but it wasn't. Also, the construction leading edge podcast, I did not see that one either. That's another good one. The Contact Crew, that's probably one of the most popular construction podcasts, so it was surprising I didn't see that. I haven't watched the Contact Crew in a few months, but I used to watch every episode every time it came out for years, and there was always good stuff on there. I don't know if they've changed or how they do it now, but I need to start watching it again and see if it's still as good as before. Brewing with BIM is another good one I would recommend. They're interesting. They talk about beer and stuff, or kind of your favorite drinks at the beginning of it. I thought that was a pretty cool. It's I would categorize it as pretty, or I wouldn't categorize it, but I would say it's pretty informal. I really enjoy it. I kind of like it for that reason. And then I think that was it. But those podcasts that I just mentioned are ones that I've watched and I enjoy. And another one, Blueprints. That one's about Bluebeam. I don't think anything's really being published on it anymore, but if that's something interesting to you, they've got the episodes are still available, the old ones, so check those out. And then also In the Blue, that's by US CAD, Art of Construction, like we see on the screen now. And then there was one that I remember watching that I think, if you're not if you're into AutoCAD, it's worth checking out. And I remember watching it back when I had to use AutoCAD a lot, and it had a lot of he did a wonderful job communicating through that medium, just voice, without any videos. And I would listen to it in the morning, get to work, and then I would have some stuff to try in AutoCAD when I got to work. And I did the same thing with Contact Crew too. I cannot remember what that podcast was called, but and I'm trying to check now on the see which see if I'm still subscribed to it. Yeah, I can't find it. Anyways, it's if I can find any of those, I'll post them below in the channel, or actually I'll put them on the Notion board. So feel free to check those out, and yeah, let me know if any of those are interesting to you, or if you learned anything from them. I always like hearing about new stuff like podcasts. So if there's ones that you know that I didn't mention here that are good, comment, or let me know, and yeah. A couple interesting YouTube videos I saw last week. So this with 8 lines of Python and pandas, how to make big point cloud files smaller. So I haven't had a chance to test this out, but I wanted to make sure to share it. I thought this would be something that if somebody's using point clouds often could try. It could be helpful for you. So just wanted to mention it. So yeah, check it out. Let me know if it works, and if how easy it actually is. I'd be interested. When I get a chance to work with a point cloud again, I will see if I can leverage this. But anyways, I just wanted to put it out there in case it was helpful for somebody. As you can see, not a ton of views, so folks that are maybe running into issues and need to trim down their files may not be aware of this workflow. So check it out in Notion if it's interesting to you. The other video is the bio-inspired generative urban tissue growth and optimization workflow. So a lot of stuff there in that title. I just found this really cool. I don't know much about this, but you can see some examples and see some animations of what's going on. So I thought this was really cool. It's a short video. And this reminded me of this bit from the Joe Rogan's podcast, where this biologist, and I don't know his name, talks about that that mold that I think it was in Japan. They tested out this mold and to create like urban cities, and yeah, so anyways, I wanted to mention this, and yeah, check them out in Notion. So this article was released on the 9th. Nvidia looking to encode the IFC schema in USD. USD, I guess, is like their format on the Omniverse, and the Omniverse is, from what I can tell, a whole bunch of stuff. It's like the, I don't know, Forge and all that. It's just a bunch of things, and I think it's still like being worked out, and the applications that are practical are still being worked out, and so it's very new, and yeah. So this is the website that kind of talks about that, kind of what it is. I know they want to tackle almost everything, it seems like. I mean, the built world, the gaming world, like everything. So we'll see how this evolves. But they're looking to encode the IFC schema because the IFC is like one of the standards in the AEC industry for our information, and yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with this, if that'll actually happen. I know there's some use cases for digital twins, because I think Omniverse is trying to get in that realm as well, and to do simulations and different things on it. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. There's a link in the Notion board for IFCs if you want to learn more about that. I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert in IFC and all the, because I don't think it's technically a format, but it's like a standard or whatever. There's just a lot of stuff to it. And also within the article, there's a link right here that'll take you to some information. So check those out if you want to learn more. I think why I wanted to mention this this week was that I think it's important to watch these things, watch the Omniverse, watch Nvidia, see how these evolve, look at their tools and applications. A lot of it seems like fluff. I don't know of any industry or anybody really using the Nvidia products or the Omniverse for anything. I don't know what solutions are even available. I know there was like a CFD or whatnot application within in the Omniverse suite of things, but I think it was limited or something. But if anything, watch it, see how it evolves. At some point, I'll actually dive further into it. It's just there has been no real practical reason for me to go that direction yet. But I would love to hear if anybody's using anything within the Omniverse world, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know what ecosystem. But anyways, this article in Notion, feel free to check it out. So. All right, so this is the last thing for this week. I had some other papers I wanted to review, but I hadn't had time to really read them, so I moved them to next week. So hopefully I can get to them next week. Anyways, the last thing, Revit 2023, this was actually posted in May 27th, but I saw it last week, so I still figured it would be interesting or helpful to share. So keep model performance in view with BIM interoperability tools. I am actually not a big fan of interoperability tools. I use like a tool called Clarity, and I just pull the data from that, and then I use the metrics from there, and then I tie Power BI into the SQL database to view the data. With BIM operabilities, it's a bit more manual, but you can use tools like Clarity to actually automate it. So you've got your checks, and then you dump those out to Excel, and then you can tie that into Power BI and visualize the report. And I assume that the report they have kind of looks like this. So, and I'd be interested to know if they have the Power BI dashboard available. And it looks like they do right here. So I did not see that last time. Okay. So a lot of those Power BI dashboards connect into certain data, but if that data is consistent in your projects, then you can use the same dashboards. You just change the data source. So Power BI is an incredible tool. I totally recommend checking that out. Anyways, that's a bit of a tangent, but that's the workflow. I know not everybody has access to tools like Clarity. That's where using something like BIM interoperability and just manually exporting the stuff could be it's a reasonable approach. The data that's collected from it is useful. So anyways, just wanted to mention it. If anybody finds it helpful, then that's all I'm after. So May 27th is when this was posted, so it's a bit older. I apologize for that, but that's what I got. And for the papers and some of the other links, you can check out next week's content. Now, that can always change. I'll add more content, or I'll remove articles and move them to the next week, or I will put them in other because maybe they're not really relevant. But keep that in mind. I try my best to read this stuff, but I want to make sure I actually read it before I go and talk about it. So sometimes I can't get to those things and I push them off to the next week. But anybody that's stuck around, I appreciate you guys watching. Please subscribe, like, share, and yeah, that's what I got for this week. I will see you in the next video. Thanks.